Taoiseach, one of the proudest things that this country ever did, in my opinion, on the foreign policy stage, was to implement a boycott against apartheid South Africa, prompted by the heroic action of the Dunnes Stores workers. And that was done unilaterally. And Nelson Mandela and many other leading fighters against apartheid made the point at the time that Ireland had made a unique contribution to bringing down the apartheid regime. Now, why do you hide behind the coattails of the EU and say we can do nothing because we don't have qualified majority voting when we did it for apartheid South Africa? Israel flouts human rights international law in terms of children and its treatment and detention of children. Its criminal siege against Gaza, which has reduced Gaza officially to a place that is uninhabitable by human beings, where there is flagrant, brazen annexation of territory, Palestinian territory, which is against international law, where the right to self-determination for Palestinians has now been officially cancelled by the Palestinian government. So only people who are Jewish now in the land that is Israel or Palestine, whatever you want to call it, have the right to self-determination. So your rights, human rights, just gone. Your international rights, gone. And it just goes on and on. Ethnic cleansing is a day-to-day reality for Palestinians. So why will you not take a leaf from the book of the Dunnes Stores strikers and what this country did in terms of apartheid South Africa, and support sanctions, including Francis Black's bill, in terms of goods from the occupied territories, and support that bill instead of blocking it, and take a lead in calling for and imposing sanctions on the apartheid, racist, repressive, illegal activities of the Israeli state in terms of the Palestinian people.
The Taoiseach met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Israel Katz on Monday, the 2nd of December, during a working visit to Israel and Palestine. During the visit, the Taoiseach also met with a number of Palestinian political leaders, including President Abbas and Prime Minister Mohammed Shatteh, and a number of UN officials as well. The Taoiseach used these meetings to discuss how Ireland can support efforts towards a durable two-state solution to the conflict, and to convey Ireland's concerns about the impact of the occupation, including in relation to settlement activity and the blockade of Gaza. On Monday, the 9th of December, yesterday, the Taoiseach briefed ministers at the Foreign Affairs Council in Brussels on his visit to Israel and Palestine. He highlighted two specific issues which merit further discussion at EU level: annexation and the need for free elections in Palestine. The Taoiseach is concerned by appalling evidence of creeping annexation in the West Bank. Ireland and the EU's position on Israeli settlements couldn't be clearer. They are illegal under international law and fundamentally undermine the prospects for a two-state solution. Israel's violation of human rights and mistreatment of Palestinians was also raised in these meetings. The Taoiseach also raised the potential for elections in Palestine, which may take place in 2020, and indeed haven't happened now for over a decade. EU member states must encourage Israel to facilitate voting for Palestinians in East Jerusalem as well. Ministers will return to the Middle East peace process in more detail at the January Foreign Affairs Council. In relation to new thinking, this does not mean any departure from the two-state solution. In relation to the labelling of products coming from the occupied territories, a French court challenging the rules on the labelling of settlement products was referred to the Court of Justice of the European Union. Ireland, as an interested member state, lodged observations on the case to endorse EU guidelines on the labelling of settlement goods issued in 2015. And appeared at the oral hearing in early April. The court's judgment was issued on the 12th of November and found that foodstuffs originating in the occupied territories must bear the indication of the territory of origin, and when these products originate from a settlement, that must also be made clear on the label. So a boycott by citizens is possible, and indeed by business. In relation to the Occupied Territories Bill, the Taoiseach set out the government's position in the Shannon and Dáil. The government's opposition to settlements is unequivocal. However, the proposals contained in this bill go beyond what's in the government's power to do. Trade is a matter of sole EU competence, and that is clear in the treaties, and passage of the bill would expose the state to legal action and to substantial and recurring damages, and no government could endorse this. On settlements, we must choose policies which will be effective that are consistent with our position in the EU single market and customs union and will not be struck down as illegal, giving comfort to settlers rather than Palestinians. Informal soundings in Brussels indicate that the European Commission agrees that the bill contravenes EU law, as trade is the sole EU competence in the treaties, and would take a legal challenge if the bill was enacted. On the issue of settlements more widely, all legal settlement activity is illegal under international law and contrary to Israel's obligations under the 4th Geneva Convention on the treatment of civilian population under military occupation. It's also damaging the viability of a future Palestinian state. The Taoiseach spoke with the US Ambassador about this matter when he met him on the 20th of November, shortly after Secretary of State Pompeo's comments. The views of the international community on settlements are extremely clear on this point and are comprehensively expressed in the UN Security Council Resolution 2334, but also in many other UN Security Council resolutions.